Previously on the Project Umbrella podcast. He needs mouth-to-mouth, and he needs mouth-to-mouth now. Where the fudge is this? I was looking around, up, trying to vibe up the hole. So it's controlled blowing. You then get the scene of Richard's body going up and down. But then if you do too much, he goes Well, the wife says, "What on earth are you doing?" And nothing, dear, just blowing into my DS. Oh no! Oh.
Project Umbrella.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Project Umbrella podcast. It's nearly Christmas. Yes, Christmas. Not Wintermas, not Winter Festival, not the festive season, but Christmas. In a Christmas celebrating country. One last shot at the liberal elite before the year is out. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune. Let's see who's joining us today. He apparently smells, and his Robin has just laid an egg. It's Batman.
Hello.
Last Christmas, he gave you his heart in a bloody T-Veronica black market organ trafficking scheme. It stars Tyrant.
Hello.
We're all going on a summer holiday for Christmas. What the fuck? It's Rombie.
Hey,
He's recently returned from the birthplace of the progenitor virus in Africa. Turns out they already knew it was Christmas. It's George Trevor. And finally, he's as traditional as Brussels sprouts at Christmas. What's that? No one likes sprouts? Oh, it's Mr. Spencer.
That's alright, no one likes me either. Hello everyone.
Coming up on today's show, we'll be looking at all the latest news, brushing over what's ever happened on the actual website, I mean seriously. We will be looking at the final demo of Resident Evil 7 for our main discussion, as recommended by a Project Umbrella listener. Yes, there are some. The corporations of the series. And we end with a rather wonderful festive edition of Neptune's Biohazard quiz. So we'll start off with the news. Okay, so we'll start with a tad bit of Resident Evil 7 news. The main discussion, we're looking at the demo specifically, but Capcom have announced various special editions of Resident Evil 7. The American version includes a part replica of the Baker House, which looks awesome. Comes with LED lighting and is also a music box that plays the Aunt Rhody song. The game itself is in a steelbook, a lithograph of the Baker family, a creepy "I shall bash you against the stone" note, and a VHS tape box which holds that dummy, kind of severed dummy finger thing, which is awesome. It's 16 gig as well, so quite useful.
So this is you said this was a model of the Baker residence. Imagine having that up in your windows like a nativity set. That's the story of Jesus right there. Bunch of fucking nutters in a house.
Does look good though.
The UK pack looks a bit better, doesn't it?
The European one is slightly different, with a 7-inch replica of the full Baker House, not just the part, but it doesn't come up with a light-up music box. We've got the 20th anniversary art book, 5 lithographs featuring art from the game, the dummy USB stick, alternative sleeve art, the survival action pack downloadable content, as well as containing consumable items with an instant unlock of the Madhouse difficulty setting. Retails at £100 and is exclusive to game, but this doesn't actually include the game.
Yeah, that's my favourite edition actually. Having played the demo, my favourite collector's edition is the one that comes without the shitty game.
You know.
Is this a preview for what's to come?
Definitely a preview, but that's a collector's edition that I have got my eye on.
The one that does include the game, which is the American one, is 180 quid. So if you want, I suppose, the UK version plus the game, what was that, 150 quid, I suppose? Don't know how much the games are nowadays.
For some crazy reason, the version in Australia comes with the game.
Right.
No steel tin, but includes a digital copy of Resident Evil 4 Remastered.
Oh!
Have a dartboard with different pre-order incentives and just like say fuck it, that'll do.
Hang on a minute, I'm just looking at this. I thought you guys were kidding around when you said like there's no game in it, so I did a little search for it,
No.
and it's like it's got all this stuff. It's like, oh, it's got this DLC in it. It's got DLC. Now where's the Oh, see, there's a problem here because I've got this DLC for something that right. I know what I've done here. It's like I've bought the special missions disc from Metal Gear Solid, but I haven't got the actual fucking game to play it on. So,
It's becoming a worrying thing. This is because like the new Sonic game's exactly the same.
Oh.
Isn't it? I think.
Oh, that's not good.
I'm only looking forward to it for the art book. Have they said how big the art book is?
No.
I think if you want the art book, I would try and get a new copy off eBay not long after the game comes out because I don't know whether that set's worth £100 without a game.
No.
see, that's dumb because you're actually going to be paying 140 quid, aren't you, when you think about it? Because you've got to pay 40 quid for the game separately.
Yeah, it's complete nonsense.
I wonder if game have had anything to do with it.
Well, I remember in the original press release, didn't they say Amazon was going to have it as well, but it's never come up.
No, I think Capcom Europe clarified that it's just game that has it. It's game exclusive.
That gives me even less
Yeah,
sense.
in Australia it's EB exclusive,
kit.
which is the equivalent of games.
I bet this was something that Game chose to do, and I'll tell you why this is. Because Game are the kind of company where, oh, you want to try out the PlayStation VR for 15 minutes? That's going to cost you £15 to demo
Oh no.
the VR headset.
Don't even get me started on that. Fucking
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going in there putting out 15 quid for something that I might not want.
Nice. No, I remember when that. Yeah, that was a bit of. I was taking the piss a bit. Just with over a month to go until the release, we've got Capcom announcing they're going to be shipping 4 million copies of the game across all formats. Resident Evil 6 shipped 4.8 million from its launch in October 2012 to the end of that year, so that they seem to be quite optimistic.
That's a combination of optimism and conserve. That's quite a conservative number compared to the previous games in the series recently. 5 and 6 both. I think 5 shipped with 5 million, and 6 they originally had like 8 million was their target. Then they shipped 6, and then it took like quite a long time for them to even sell that 6 million.
Other news, the third CG movie, Resident Evil / Biohazard Vendetta, is coming out on May 27th, 2017 in Japanese cinema. We have no idea if the UK's got one. I think, didn't Damnation get a little one somewhere in the West? It did,
Yeah,
didn't
it
it?
did.
I thought so.
I don't get this because I'm looking at Biohazard Vendetta, right, and looking at the synopsis of it, and I'm just kind of thinking this should have come out when Ori 6 was out because this kind of fit with Ori 6. They're a bit late.
It does.
Yeah.
Anyone who isn't aware, the synopsis has now been released. We've been having pre-podcast chats over this, possibly relating to the stage, which of course we all loved in Project Umbrella Towers. There does appear to be, with the involvement of Rebecca, it sounds like a cure to the virus in this stage. That's the interpretation I picked up. If that's what's going to go down, who knows? But yeah, so it stars Chris, Rebecca, and Leon. It would appear that the beginning part is taking place in the mansion, which we've seen in the trailer already. Chris, working with the BSA, infiltrates this mysterious mansion and comes across a chap called Glenn Arias.
It's Arius.
Arius. Okay, thank you there, Mr. Spencer. He's a criminal Interpol's watch list. He witnesses an unbelievable sight. I'm going to go with probably...
His team being killed again.
something like this. Injecting himself, watching the other chap inject himself with a virus. Or maybe paedophilia, who knows? He manages to get away. Meanwhile,
Hey, Jimmy Savile's in this?
who knows?
Is he the bad guy in this?
So then we get to Rebecca, who's she's developed a cure for a new type virus. They all team up with Leon to go kick some ass and try and save the world from this Glenn Arias, whose true motive is bioterrorism. Doesn't sound very interesting anymore, does it? After the initial trailer was quite cool.
Sounds like that mansion stuff with Chris is probably only going to be the first 10 minutes of the film.
And maybe a flashback for Rebecca.
Yay, Leon on his bike.
Yeah, it's a shame really, because I have a soft spot for the CG films. I think Degeneration in itself is quite a good little film. Adds quite a lot to the overall storyline. Damnation saves itself by the fact that we actually see tyrants in a combat zone, which is awesome. Oh well, I hope I'm wrong.
Invested in it really for Rebecca, to be honest.
I think my concept of a Resident Evil film is great. Like I said, right? So Jimmy Savile, he's the main villain in it, but he didn't die. He faked his death. He went into hiding, and he plans his revenge against the world. And the opening scene could be where he releases the T-virus into the BBC television centre, because they were the people that sold him out.
Okay, well, no doubt after Resident Evil 7 we'll be touching on Vendetta a lot more, because that'll be the next big release after RE7. And the final bit of news, Heavenly Island. Yeah, still going, believe it or not. It's having its own personal run against Mahara Desire as to which is the most longest and irrelevant manga series going, but here we go, 2 years later. So we are now up to chapter 45, but I'm only laughing. I'm laughing because it's ridiculous. But this comic does now link up with Lost in Nightmares Revelations 2, some other game that I don't care to mention, and maybe even Resident Evil 7. It's looking quite essential for the ultimate collector of canon Capcom product.
To be honest, this won't be a popular opinion, but I quite like it. If you can get past the stupid survival idol crap with all the girls in bikinis running around, past that, there's quite a good story in there.
Care to elaborate on where we're at?
Well, it's right near the end now. Basically, it introduces this new corporation, this Shen-Ya Pharmaceuticals, and they're looking for Oswald Spencer's last laboratory, which is the same place Alex Wesker went to create the immortality virus. And she was working on a project to create the ultimate B.O.W. based on the survival of the fittest concept, which was taken from Resident Evil Survivor, where they basically create B.O.Ws, pit them against each other until there's only one of them left, and then take a sample of its blood and recombine it with the virus and do it all again. They use the whole island as like a big testing
So that's, yeah, you're right with the Survivor. That's what they did with the Hypnos gene, didn't they, for the Hypnos Tyrant?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, yeah. There's links to both Revelations games because it has Alex Wesker in it, it has Parker in it. It explains the Lost in Nightmares backstory from the files, and it obviously links to Umbrella Corps as well, and potentially Shen-Ya Pharmaceuticals maybe in Resident Evil 7. So it's worth looking at if you can just get past the stupid girls in bikinis shit.
What's stupid about that?
You know what Japanese manga's like, it's just dramatically over-sexualized and it's just...
Again, I'm not seeing where the problem is here.
Because it's just drawings, John. It's not real.
I'm so tired.
Where do you think people like me and Mr. Spencer would be about drawings? You have nothing for that.
Hey, you should see the game that I've been playing lately on Steam.
I've got a good idea of the sort of places too frequent. I think we've already heard some of the websites you go on.
Site news, Project About should be working. You should be able to log on and actually comment. We have no idea what went wrong. It's just an really old website run by Drupal for people who know how these things work. But you should be able to log back on and contribute accordingly. Yay! That concludes the news. We'll now go on to our sub-discussion when we're going to be looking at the 3-hour demo / tape 3 trailer discussion of Resident Evil 7 beginning hour.
For 3 years, Ethan Winters believed his wife was dead, until he received a message from beyond the grave. But he's about to face the disturbing reality.
It's Mia. She's not dead, she's alive. She's back.
How long did you say this place has been abandoned?
3 years. Abandoned farmhouse, missing family, foul play suspected.
Shitty house, spooky sounds. Ooh, is it haunted?
This house is off limits!
Welcome to the family, son. I'm coming, Mia. Get me out of this fucking nightmare!
That's it. We've had several missing persons.
Not me. That wasn't me. No, leave me alone!
Mommy hates you, you know. Kill him, Mommy.
Don't hurt him.
Wait, what are you doing?
Ethan, please help me. Ethan, help me. I don't know what happened. There's so much that you need to know. I love you, Ethan. I miss you.
So, I'm really intrigued to start with the negatives.
How British. So, what's shit about this? Oh, but it's horrible.
Most of the comments I've read, even on Facebook, which is, normally a trove of scum and tyranny, that People are really excited about it. So, George, you've played it. What did you think?
Well, finally, thank you, Capcom, for letting me play it, because, you know, I'm Xbox scum, so I wasn't allowed to play it for some time. Now I have done. I can see why all the PlayStation owners didn't, you know, lord it over us, because there's very little to shout about. To me, finally, thank you, Capcom. You've woken up and realised that you don't have any talent in your company left like you used to do that produced the earlier games. And actually, that, you know, the self-realisation that all they can do is just muster up someone else's work. So they've taken PT, they've added a couple of tropes from Blair Witch Project, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'm quite happy with the PT rip-off, quite frankly. I'm easily pleased. I thought PT was fantastic, but if you're going to do it, at least do it on a par at the very least. But they don't. The graphics are inferior to PT or anything else that's out there. I'm not going to list them now. People can go and find them on the net. Project Ladybird, The Mannequin. These are independent indie titles, not AAA that Capcom, you know, supposedly are, that are producing an original, unique version of exactly what this demo is. Because for me, the demo doesn't add anything unique or interesting that makes me want to play it. I actually played it just to get, you know, through it, and it was like a chore, solving puzzles with random glances at lights. I didn't realise Capcom had this much contempt for their audience. They almost become a parody of themselves, because you get that dialogue on the tape where one of the chaps whose name is just interchangeable with another guy's says, oh, you know, your usual story, usual mansion, you know, nothing to see here. And he's absolutely right. That's a perfect review of it for me. I'll end this with a positive by saying I was over the moon that they were trying to get back to this survival horror pace, and they clearly are trying to do that. But it doesn't appear to me like there's anyone there in this company left that can actually do it with some wit and sophistication that makes you want to play an enjoyable game. They're the George Lucas of developers, you know, 3 great titles and then 3 shit ones. And I wish they should sell up to Disney and save this series.
So high praise then. So what you're saying is we need a Rogue One, Resident Evil kind of thing to turn things around.
He hasn't seen Rogue One.
I just found it so repetitive, and it was so chore-like. Like I was having to get through it as a chore, and there was nothing enjoyable or satisfying in any of the realization of the puzzles. But maybe it's a limited demo, so maybe it will open up and the game will be wonderful.
What did you think of the first person? Didn't you always want a first person Resident Evil game, a proper one?
No, I was really against first-person games. I've always liked the third-person fixed camera angles. I didn't find the over-the-shoulder particularly enjoyable. For me, it was no different really to first-person. I actually prefer this than when you've got the camera. I've never seen the point of that halfway house of having the camera up behind someone's back. Either have third-person fixed camera where you see the whole character model and the background's the static, or like you had in Lost in Nightmares. That wasn't right. You know, that small little section with Lost in Nightmares, the camera was zoomed right out. You could see the whole character model. No, the first person didn't bother me at all. It was just the mind-numbing gameplay that did.
I'm surprised. I thought you'd like it. I think you're being a bit harsh.
I am very open. It's very limited. A lot of my criticisms to do with there's not much they can do, is there? They've got a limited environment. You can't explore out further. There's not much for them to do. They're trying to give you a flavour.
I think that puzzle was deliberately put in because people went crazy over the dummy finger. I don't think there'll be anything that extreme in the final game.
I do agree with that. I think you'll not see a lot of the horror cheats that they do in the main game either, like, teleporting bakers. They always said the demo was just to give you an idea or an impression, wasn't it? It wasn't necessarily to reflect the final game.
The other part that's quite different is the fact that you are playing it on the Xbox has now come out. It's the full demo as the demo. When they put it on PS4, it came out in parts, which is how we ended up with people obsessively trying to work out what that finger was for.
Yeah.
I think I figured out what the enemy is in the game. You know, the molded, whatever they're called, or mold. And I'm thinking, right, they're called molded, but the family's called bakers. What do you bake? Bread. What grows on bread? Mold. So maybe they're bread monsters. Like, yeast is the problem in this.
Yeast.
Like, it's all about
T-virus yeast.
Find the
yeast
T-virus with a yeast, and they've made some kind of thing. They're bread monsters.
I did read that in some of the interview that actually the vast majority of it doesn't actually take place in that mansion, and there's lots more that we see outside of the plantation or wherever they are and other areas.
Well, people who've played the 4-hour build have said there's loads of different buildings you can go to. And there's like a little, is it a caravan or a garage which acts as like a shop where you can go and
unlockable cages in, and there's a submerged house in a bog. That'll be nice and atmospheric.
But people have been praising it because it has got all the old school stuff, like item boxes, like save rooms and save room music.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly say, I really did actually like the inventory system, which was no thrills, because that's what I didn't like about the RE5 inventory system, and also with 6 particularly, they almost tried to be too clever. I really like this. It was just straightforward, clear and simple. I really like that.
It's going to be interesting to see. It's now looking like you're going to have to play in the hardest difficulty that the game offers you at the beginning. Is it just like easy, normal or hard? Because easy and normal have checkpoint saving, whereas the hardest difficulty that's available from the beginning is the one which relies on save rooms.
Oh, so if you want the really authentic old school experience, you're going to have to go...
I'm sure that's what the last batch of news said, that Reddit post.
I saw that too.
But like you were saying, all the press that have played the first 4 hours of the game, they're all really impressed with it because it does feel like old Resident Evil. They've confirmed there's multiple puzzles in the game. Like to get out of one section of the house, you've got to find 3 parts of an emblem. There's loads and loads of backtracking. There's plenty of files. We've already had a couple of references to previous characters.
Things like the shotgun's optional.
Yeah.
So you can miss it. I think a few people who tested it missed it completely.
And apparently there's loads of environment interaction as well, so we'll get them little text descriptions again. And apparently Ethan says things as well if you go and examine them. So
Yeah, I've read that. I thought there's more him speaking than actual descriptions of anything, but
it's better than nothing at all.
You know what should have been the tagline for E7? Day of the bread. Think about it. Honestly, it's a great idea.
What did you think of the moulded enemy?
It's a bread man.
Part of my frustration at the game and the repetitiveness started, the randomness started with trying to kill that enemy, because it didn't seem to always react to the same techniques twice. I don't know if anyone else did. I kept feeling that throughout the demo, that they just seemed to be not an interesting randomness, just more a frustrating one in how the enemies, reacted to the collision, and the damage it would take.
I did find it bastard hard to kill. I struggled. I think I was the only person actually online that night, the day it came out, struggling to kill it. I just couldn't do it. Could not do it at all.
No, I struggled the first time as well. It was really hard. And the other thing as well is it is a bit of a random thing. Like the first time I ever went into that room, I picked up the valve handle and it didn't appear. Like sometimes it appears as soon as you walk in the room, sometimes it doesn't appear until you go in the back to get the key. It's really random as to even when it appears. And if it appears at the front the first time when you go for the valve handle, you can leave and come back to get the key, and it'll have gone round to where the key is, and it'll just be waiting there behind the pillar if you can come around the corner.
Design wise, it's wonderfully creepy, and its movement I quite like. It's very regeneratory, but I can imagine it's going to be quite tense when it's being chased down by about 2 or 3 of them. But I did quite like one of the write-up says that they're very unintelligent, so you can actually shut them into rooms, and if you don't need to go back, they will never be able to escape.
Yeah, I like that.
New virus though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's yeast.
The T. Veronica virus with the yeast.
I mean,
lab accidents.
They got it all wrong. It's a translation error. Baker's not the surname, it's their profession.
See, I was quite surprised, George, you called it out for its visuals, because I think it's nearly photorealistic in places.
Wow.
I think compared to the Atlas games, and I've played the demo of the second one, and I think 7's, for me, I don't know whether it's my setup or anything like that, but I would say it probably looked the strongest of... Probably not up to PT, but then PT is only rendering a corridor.
I don't know, because... You're right. It got back to the atmosphere and the pace and the point where looking at these static pictures and textures and things, there's a point to actually doing that. So I was interested to explore, and that's what we all loved about remaking the first game. But going up to the photographs, they didn't seem clear at all. Going up to notes to read what the notes said. I mean, maybe that was purposeful, that they were, it was scrawled writing and it was, ink was blurred and you couldn't read it. But so quite a few of the things I'd go up for a closer look, and just the textures just didn't seem, the resolution didn't seem as high as I'd expect, particularly with the photographs that were quite blurry up close.
I'm hopeful there's going to be an increase in texture resolution, because there was already an increase on the demo once when it was on the PlayStation, the first release of it, compared to the second one. It was a massive patch update and the quality of the textures jumped up. So I'm hoping that because this is still a demo, that maybe there's still more compression than there will be in the final product, or the texture resolution will be worked on. Or
you see on someone on Biohazard, I think it was Smiley, said it actually had a 4 GB update a couple of days ago.
Was that? Gosh, I didn't even look.
I've not checked yet. I don't even know if it's been updated at all.
I did read that if you can play it on the PS4 Pro, it kind of gets the kind of 4K HDR. That looks very good.
Yeah, people have said that it's the best looking PS Pro game you can get.
But then there's not that many TVs that are HDR, so there's not going to be many people that are going to experience it. Seems a bit wasted, but we'll see. We'll see. What's the view down under?
I enjoyed it, but as like Sean said, I found the enemies quite hard at first. I haven't even bothered with the obtuse puzzle to get the coin yet. I was like, I'll do that just before the game comes out so that I can transfer that across, which is quite a cool little extra feature. Yeah, it was a good expansion, and there's nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed it. I don't know what else to say that everyone else hasn't said. I'm definitely like Paul. I enjoyed it, and I think it looks fine. I don't think it looks the best game ever, but I'm hopeful that all the textures will be upgraded, like I said.
Are you still going to buy it, Paul, the game?
Yeah, of course I'm going to buy it. I'm Resident Evil 6. That's why I'm just such a spineless twat. No, I don't want to be disingenuous about it. I want to be clear. Me and my ilk have been waiting for this sort of atmosphere and moaning about not having this atmosphere for years. So, no, I do. I thank Capcom. I think they're 15 years too late, but they've gone back to it, and I really hope that it does succeed, and proves that there is an audience out there for this. I think a lot of my, it's frustration, isn't it? Resident Evil games used to be the pinnacle, and there always used to be something new and almost advanced about them. They were the pinnacle in the graphics or the atmosphere. Resident Evil 4 was, love it or hate it, was quite revolutionary really at the time. I think it was pushing the boundaries and for a GameCube game and trying to do something that other games weren't doing. But then there's been this real lull. So, but I do hope it succeeds. I just expected a lot more.
I think it's interesting you bring up Resident Evil 4 there, though. I think the community actually forget we went through this way back then. When we first heard that they were doing away with zombies, they were doing away with the camera angles. It was exactly the same kind of reaction from the fan base. It's no different this time. And yet, to a lot of people, not necessarily myself, 4 turned out all right.
Well, I was going to say that is a good parallel because we had that demo that everyone was a little bit cautious about. But the magazine, and websites were like, this is really cool. Like, we've tried it. It looks amazing. Then the Famitsu demo came out, and everyone who tried to import it and got copies of it and played it on their own GameCubes were like, yeah, okay, this is actually really different, but it's good. That the parallels are very strong between those two events.
How do you guys feel? Because one criticism, I've not seen too much criticism similar to mine online. What the biggest criticism, which I just think is totally nonsensical, is this: oh, there's no Chris, there's no Leon, it's not Resident Evil. After the years we've had with those characters, I really no part of me is that concerned at all. I can quite happily take the Bakers, and it's just as long as it's a good narrative and gameplay with it, it doesn't bother me that we don't have these returning characters.
Yeah, we get them in every other media in some way or the other, so we're not missing them.
If two of the early files are anything to go by, I don't think the fans will be disappointed, in terms of fan service kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Be interesting. When you say files that you've seen online or not that you found in the demo? I have.
They're ones that journalists have reported on. Who played it? John, remind me, was it someone on Biohazard France or something?
Yeah, Biohazard France played it, and there was 2 files written by characters from previous games. I don't think they'll have any relevance to the story. It might just be Easter eggs, but it's still pretty cool.
That's a shame, because my favourite files are the ones that have a sort of creepy or interesting backstory and characters, but actually have a direct relationship to the gameplay, or help you solve a puzzle. There's a clue in there, yellow and blue tiger eyes, that sort of thing, just a clue to another puzzle.
Yeah, well, one of them's interesting.
There might be some of those we don't know yet.
One of them's a newspaper article written by a minor character from a previous game, and the other one is quite interesting because it's written by a character who, timeline-wise, hasn't been in the series for a long, long time. So be interesting to see what his involvement is with him writing files so long after he disappeared.
Oh, I don't know who that person is.
Do you want me to tell you?
We could do a spoiler alert on the podcast.
It's not really a spoiler, though, because I think a few websites have announced it now. Basically, one of them's a newspaper article talking about people going missing.
Get ready for this, guys.
In the Baker family area, and it's written by Alyssa Ashcroft from Outbreak.
Yes!
Wow.
I did know that one, but that was exciting.
Outbreak, all you people. Oh, you people who said it's not canon. Oh.
It is now.
As I've argued before, the director said it was canon.
Yeah.
It's canon.
And I don't know what the second file is, but it's written by Clive O'Brien from Resident Evil Revelations. So,
that's quite cool.
So, like I say, if that's just in the first 4 hours, or a hand-picked 4 hours, and you've already got like those two sort of quite deep canon references that a lot of modern fans aren't going to get, particularly the Alyssa one's going to be lost on so many of the sort of newer fans.
Can I sort of subtract everything I just said before? I'm astounded. I just so cynical view was that there wouldn't even be anyone left at Capcom that even knew some of these characters from Outbreak.
And unfortunately, this is the power of this fucking series, isn't it? No matter how much you can
every time I go out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, a file written by Alyssa Ashcroft from a 14-year-old game is like, oh, I'm back.
Yeah.
But the problem is, everyone's going to be like, oh, there's a reference to George Ashcroft. Oh, are they making Outbreak again? Are they making Outbreak again?
Oh God, yeah.
Outbreak HD, it's confirmed.
I'm just waiting for the file which describes the Baker's residence has been designed by George Trevor, because I'm not quite ready for them not to play that card again.
Everybody's conveniently ignoring my little, it's not the Umbrella logo on the helicopter thing. Someone wrote a massive article all about Umbrella's role in the game because of this helicopter, and I went on and said it's not the Umbrella logo, and he basically told me to fuck off.
You can see the shield emblem around it.
I know, but people are ignoring it because they don't want anything to do with Umbrella Corps. They're like, oh my god, it's Umbrella, they're back, even though they're sort of ignoring the fact that Umbrella went under.
It's the inverted colours and got the shield around it.
Been gone as a company for more than a decade at this point in the game series.
But what was interesting in the new trailer was, from what Capcom had said so far, I thought Ethan's wife had gone missing quite recently, but apparently she went missing 3 years ago. And in the bit at the start of the trailer where someone gets thrown off the ship, it looks like a woman's hands. Maybe his wife went missing 3 years ago.
Really channeling SARD 2 with that one.
I was going to say it ties into the timeline given in the demo as well about the plantation itself, because they talk about it being abandoned and the reports of missing people from 3 years earlier. So
is it clear though that, because I thought it was interesting this, because one of the things that was unique and sort of brave to put in there was this idea of solving a puzzle, kind of going back and forward in the future with two different characters with the tapes, and I really like that. But is that not something that's going to be utilised that often in the main game? Do we know?
It will be, yeah. Apparently there's quite a few videotapes you can find. Because the Bakers have abducted loads of different people, apparently, and each one of these tapes represents a different minor character.
One problem I found, though, with that was it became a bit repetitive, and I wanted to fast-forward the start of the tape every time I played it, and whilst you can end it early, then I think if they're going to use that, there really needs to be a system for fast-forwarding the tape.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that as well. But I think they are quite important to the story, and obviously they help you find hidden items in the main game. So
to be fair, there is a chance maybe something will appear like that, because the ability to even end it early wasn't even in the first version of the demo. That wasn't added until first update. So
yeah, no, they should definitely have a thing. I think you sometimes have with cutscenes where you can't fast forward it on the first occasion, but thereafter, then you can, because that's really stopped me getting into it. The first time I watched that tape, I thought it was good, but then it just became increasingly more annoying. And then the fact that I couldn't see, that they made it so difficult to see the apparitions. I think there's Easter eggs, but then there's just trying to be too clever. And if you've got to go onto YouTube and follow someone else's guide and get the precise second right to see the apparitions, again, to me, it just becomes a chore rather than a puzzle that's difficult and then satisfying.
The thing was as well, that third update made it basically that tape almost pointless, other than the information of knowing where the handle under the fireplace is, because you don't need to get the lockpick from it anymore, because you can get the lockpick under the stairs. And that's basically it. So it makes it look like perhaps maybe what the version in the final game is, that if you watch the tapes, you'll get more story. You might also get more hints and clues as to where maybe hidden items are, or where you can unlock something in there. But if you don't get it in the tape, maybe you can always come back later and get it when you've got the item you need to unlock or somewhere else.
Is that going to be it for Resident Evil 7? Because the next podcast will be about Resident Evil 7, so we can leave our listeners.
The only thing I would say is watch for spoilers from tomorrow, because that demo is going to get data mined within about half an hour of it going up on Steam.
Oh, okay.
It's tomorrow, and it's the PC demo.
Yeah. Hopefully they've been a bit more smart about it, but probably not.
given their track record with Street Fighter 5 at the minute, where the next game-changing patch has gone up like 4 days early on Steam and has been data mined. Yeah, Capcom doing really well with that kind of thing.
I just don't see the point. What's the point? People are either going to buy it or they're not. How much is a demo needed nowadays? With so much social media, back in the day, the only way to even know about a game really was to get the magazine from the official mag or something like that and play it.
We're essentially putting the whole thing into question. That we're essentially talking about this like they've released this demo as a tonal kind of thing, and it kind of sets up the game that we're going to play. In that respect, it's kind of unique but different enough and interesting and.
It might be self-contained in that respect and not feature much content in the game itself.
So I'm hoping that's the case, but I do stuff like weapons list and stuff that might be uniformed files that even this is using. But hopefully there's only a lesson. But
the interesting thing is, like, obviously from a historical point of view for us as hardcore fans. Is the demo actually going to be featured? Is beginning hour going to be featured in the final game at any point, or is the only way to be able to still play it is just to keep the demo installed on your machines?
I reckon we'll go into that location, but just as a different character in a different set of circumstances.
I was going to say, I'm sure I read somewhere that Capcom had stated that there were a certain amount of tapes in total, and that was the first one, and that that literally would be the start of the game, and that you would play through that as part of the main game.
Yeah, the tape you will, but I think the scenario for the demo, the unnamed character you are, and what happens to him, and the little ending he gets with the LSD and the police not believing him, I think that's just purely fabricated for the demo. I don't think that's part of the canon.
Okay, because you see, that's a shame, because that was one of my, again, another frustration for me with the demo. What I was expecting and hoping, and Neptune asked, "What's the point of these demos?" Is I thought it was there to kind of cause debate and interest and discussion about various lines of inquiry that would take us into the main game. But that's when I suddenly found all the randomness in it. Then again, there was very little connection. I would have much preferred something that almost like a prologue, with things that we are debating and discussing now that are going to be important and significant in the main game.
I think there is hints there. I mean, obviously the VHS tape's 100% canon, and there's certain things you can find in the environments, like the bathroom is full of posters on the wall. I don't know if they're the people the bakers have been intentionally snatching or what. I don't know, but
certainly, of course, the infamous umbrella, not umbrella on the.
I don't know whether Capcom are fucking with us, and they might change it for the final game. I don't know, but it's definitely not an Umbrella Corporation logo. It's an Umbrella Corps logo, but I always assumed Umbrella Corps was just like a piss-taking name for the guinea pig squad. They put through these experiments. So I don't really understand if it's a completely separate pharmaceutical company
that owns this unit, why would they have a helicopter with an umbrella-type logo on it?
For what is essentially an ironic name for a Special Forces team.
That's why I don't understand the Special Forces, but I could understand, for example, another pharmaceutical company has bought up the Umbrella brand under its collapse, or are using it as a placeholder to shift their own blame from their own dodgy dealings or something, you know what I mean? Like, that I could understand a lot more. The soldier thing I've never understood, so.
We shall see. Right.
I was going to say, just one last final note. I'm going to be one of those suckers that buys the £100 collector's edition because it's not actually getting released here in New Zealand at all. Because it doesn't come with the game, that's perfect. I can just buy that locally and just...
This is why I bet Capcom fucking love people like you. They would just sell you shit. You go, I'm going to buy that because it's Resident Evil number 5.
Well, I want the art book, so...
Right. We'll now move on to our main discussion of the podcast. We're looking at the organizations of Resident Evil.
The only thing that can defeat power is more power. That is the one constant in this universe. However, there is no point in power if it consumes itself.
I've sent Wesker a different present. Just as the organization ordered.
Mr. President, what is the connection between Umbrella Corporation and this biohazard incident?
Questions at this time. Thank you very much.
The President has announced his resignation.
Pharmaceutical company WilPharma issued a press release on establishing a new research facility in Harvardville.
The giant pharmaceutical corporation S maintains medical and drug facilities the world over.
Your position at Tricell is secure.
Human rights organization TerraSave has demanded that WilPharma immediately release the results of their clinical tests.
Umbrella Corporation stock plummeted here in Europe. This dealt a serious blow to the business giant, resulting in its complete dissolution.
The organization must remain vigilant.
Some of this equipment's got the Tricell logo on it.
WilPharma stock fell sharply as a result of scathing accusations hurled at them by TerraSave.
WilPharma must go!
Umbrella represented power. He used it to hide behind when he made plans of his own. And now the umbrella's been folded.
Come on. You know Tricell's history, right?
So this is obviously going to be slightly different to our usual structured format of our main discussion of the podcast. So we had a suggestion from someone about talking about the organisations.
Well, that's rude, isn't it? You can't remember the guy's name. It's like, oh, some twat gave us some kind of, recommendation, so fuck it, we got nothing else to talk about.
Should I be too polite and mention it was me?
Fucking Jesus.
Right, so we're going to be looking at the organisation. So as we see it, that's the Umbrella Corporation, naturally. Tricell, WilPharma, the rival company, and this new mysterious organisation that's already been talked about this evening, the Shen-Ya Pharmaceuticals. So I think it's only prudent that we start with the Umbrella Corporation. I think what I will start with is the relationship between Umbrella as an entity and Spencer, and in particular we go to that line. It always stuck out for me in Wesker's report 2, when Wesker questions why on earth would Oswald Spencer have an Umbrella lab in the middle of a forest. I think that was always quite I think it's an interesting point, because it raises the question as to how much of a shit does he give about Umbrella as a company, what was his own goals, and ultimately it led towards Resident Evil 5. And we can trace all the way back to the beginning as to the separate relationship between the corporation and the individual. I always found that interesting. Did anyone else?
No.
I'm going to say that I've always just taken it on face value that, especially once the remake came out and Zero was on its way, that with the training facility being so close and his intent to have like this manor plus lab together in a location that was reasonably close, that was just why, and I just took it on face value. I've never questioned it. Yeah, okay, maybe it is kind of odd that it seems like an unreachable mansion in the middle of nowhere. Like, there doesn't even seem to be really any connecting roads, pathways, or anything. So they only get in or out by helicopter.
Is that, and also I think because Wesker was questioning, why would they be developing a virus that is so potent, and we're in a forest?
I would say because at some point Spencer was obviously planning some sort of event to wipe out the normal population, because all he was interested in was his creating this race of superhumans. So I'm assuming the rest of us would have just been disposable.
Yes.
A forest is actually a very secluded location.
That doesn't matter though, because the T virus it's cross-species, isn't it? It affects plants and animals just as well as humans.
Okay. What I was kind of hinting at, I suppose, was we know Mr. Spencer's ambitions, but how does the Umbrella Corporation lead into it? Are they nothing more than a pawn? And their beginnings, because you have different ideologies with Brandon Bailey, James Marcus, Edward Ashford, and that those collective geniuses kind of combining together to make a corporation. Was it purely just to mask their development, or I don't know?
I think it was. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it was never used as a house, was it? It was only ever.
Because there was two companies, but I remember Umbrella.
It was Umbrella Pharmaceuticals, but then when it became multinational, it was rebranded Umbrella Corporation. That was the main sort of parent company for all the individual organisations. But yeah, Spencer, Marcus and Ashford, they just wanted godhood, didn't they? They just wanted what the Enderpire tribe had with that flower. But because the base progenitor virus was far too potent and killed most people, the whole point of the T-virus project was to create a neutered version of it. An Umbrella was just to cover up that fact, because obviously the research they're doing was obviously illegal, so they had to disguise it under a legitimate pharmaceutical company.
I think we're missing a big, important part of this with Umbrella that I can't believe we've not discussed it yet, but I guarantee you Umbrella was part of the whole military-industrial complex back in the Cold War with the US government in the 60s. Because Umbrella started out, what, 68? The Cold War was in full swing at that point, and I guarantee you they had some shit going down with the US government.
I think it's mentioned somewhere that the US government was Umbrella's first customer. We don't know when that was.
It would be a good tie, and I'd actually think that would be quite a good reasoning, like that they were basically funded to make weapons for war, basically. It'd be awesome.
It's a shame it's never been expanded on during the Raccoon City incident other than the G-Virus retrieval program with the Spec Ops.
Yeah, but there's loads of stuff in the background. The Raccoon City incident was basically, ironically, a massive Cold War between Umbrella and the US government, all over the G-Virus.
Oh, here's something interesting. Alright, so the United States Biological Defense Program, right, which began as a small defensive effort that was all about, it was part of offensive biological weapons development, and it was active between 1943 and 1969. What was set up in 1968, wasn't it? Umbrella. So maybe they were like, hey, we don't need to do this shit ourselves anymore. We can now privatize it and let this company do it rather than us spending our resources.
I see, that's coincidental, isn't it?
And then you've got, but the only downside is you've got the Biological Weapons Convention of 1972, which was signed by Nixon. Well, no, it was 1969, it was Nixon that basically ended all offensive aspects of the United States biological weapons program. So here's my theory. I believe America was doing it themselves, but when 1969 came around, we're like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make ourselves look good by saying we're going to publicly announce that we have ended our US, our biological weapons program. But a year previous, when Umbrella's around, they go, okay, we'll just say they can do it. They the weapons research on our behalf.
Secretly fund them,
And secretly fund them, and then if any shit hits the fan, we're not tied to it because we weren't doing it ourselves. They're the ones that are doing it. So it's like their bioweapons program never ended. They just publicly announced, oh yeah, we're not doing it anymore. Yeah, you're not doing it anymore. But other third parties, i.e. Umbrella, are doing it on your behalf with your funding.
I think you're probably spot on. I think by the time you get to the Raccoon City incident, though, you've got a lot of key players getting really very worried. Because, as you said, that's been going on for 40 years, and we know what Umbrella did in that time with the Hunter program, or Zombies Hunter, then Tyrant and things like that. That the whole Raccoon City incident did cause worldwide panic. We had the president resigning, and you saw the Outbreak ending is, I'm not sure how canon that Outbreak ending is, but it was good to see all the military people in that room kind of commanding the Angels to go and destroy the city.
Basically, I think since like 1970, 69, I think the US government, i.e. the family, because they basically were the people behind the US government, Derek Simmons and friends, and I believe that they did have this thing going on as Umbrella, and for a while, for about 40 years or so, it was good, it was great. I mean, the Cold War ended, times changed a bit, but I think overall, they had a good business thing going on. And then when Raccoon City happened, that was the US government's kind of opportunity then to cut themselves of Umbrella, to cut all ties and, throw them into the wind, basically, and go, yeah, we don't really need these guys anymore, so this has happened. We can't work with these guys. They can never be connected to us. There could be nothing that connects us to Umbrella at this point. And I think that was probably a big incentive behind the nuking of Raccoon City. They weren't doing it to sterilize the place. Bullshit. They did that to cover up the fact that they were involved and to cover up evidence of their involvement with Umbrella, because they knew that when this shit hit the fan and it went to the Supreme Court, this would bring the president down. And it eventually did, of course. They were trying to minimize the impact and the effect it had on certain influential people in the US government, i.e. the family.
Oh, you're exactly right there. Umbrella and the government were sort of really close partners right up until Raccoon City, and the changing point was William Birkin wanting to leave Umbrella, because the government thought if they can get William Birkin into custody with the G-Virus, then they'll no longer need Umbrella. But obviously that went tits up, and as soon as the government retrieved the G-Virus from Sherry, the whole point of nuking the town was to stop Umbrella from getting the G-Virus, but they were unaware that hunk had already made it out.
And I would say as well to cover it up.
And Frederick Downing.
Yeah.
It was to cover up. I think that was a part of it, to stop Umbrella getting the G-Virus, but also to cover up the fact that, I mean, there's probably a simpler way to stop Umbrella getting the G virus. You send in US soldiers, you send in Delta Force or something like that to hunt down whoever's working for Umbrella. You don't nuke an entire fucking city unless you believe there's some serious evidence there that needs to be wiped clean. And they can just say, oh, well, it was a terrible disaster. We did what was necessary to, protect American lives from this potentially life-endangering outbreak that could have spread to other US cities. So it makes them look good because the public story was that we did it to sterilize the place and protect American lives. What we won't tell you is the real reason we did it was because, hey, A, we don't want Umbrella getting the G virus, and B, we're going to cover up the fact and use nukes to cover up secrets.
But I suppose we had the testimonies afterwards, didn't we, in the courts, and Wesker's ultimate plan to bring Umbrella down and then locate Spencer.
There was quite a cool thing in one of the I can't even remember where it's from. I think it was one of the files in Resident Evil 5 basically said that for 30 odd years Umbrella had been using technology and equipment developed by other pharmaceutical companies and using them in their own experiments.
They're all in on it. They're all in on it. It's the military-industrial complex. They're all in on it. There's no such thing as competitive capitalism. They're all in league with each other.
These things were being covered up, so no one knew what was really happening. And then when Raccoon City happened and Umbrella went to court, all these other companies were implicated in unwittingly creating biological weapons because their technology had been used by Umbrella to develop these weapons. And what happened was the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium, who represents all these companies, they were going to have to prosecute other corporations as well as Umbrella. And in order to stop that, the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium dropped the charges against all these companies on the condition that they would all band together and turn on Umbrella, which I thought it was quite a clever little... It's quite deep. It's a lot deeper than what they give it credit for, the whole aftermath of, how the company went down.
I mean, didn't the president resign after Raccoon City?
Yeah.
I guarantee he was a fall guy for the true powers behind the government.
When the new president came in, he took like a massive anti-Umbrella stance, which is why you get people like Leon having that secret directive to eradicate all the viruses and, formations of the anti-Umbrella pursuit and investigation team, things like that.
So in truth, Leon is working for the wrong people.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I honestly believe the US government are the biggest bastards in the series. People talk about, Umbrella did bad shit, or WilPharma, or Tricell. No, the government. The government are the biggest bastards because they've done this shit. They've not blooded their own hands doing it. They use other people to do their dirty work, and then they get rid of them, and then they disavow all knowledge and go, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It was the president acting alone. We'll just sack the president. Doesn't matter. We can get a new president.
Is there any evidence, though, that Umbrella was playing the US off against other people in the sense that they were selling the products or trying to sell the products to rival like USSR, Russia as well?
I don't think there's any examples as such, but I think the government feared that once the G virus was completed, Umbrella were going to create bioweapons using the G virus, and these weapons would be sold to other countries, and these weapons could ultimately be used against Americans.
Because before Umbrella went down, we had Umbrella Europe, Germany, Japan, right around the world, and they can't all be making Aquasafe, or whatever it's called.
Well, there was a massive rivalry between Umbrella USA and Umbrella Europe.
Oh, yes.
They competed over the sort of human biological weapon aspect because you had the Americans working on the Tyrant program and the Europeans were working on the Nemesis. So there was like a massive rivalry there. But once the business suspension order came in after Raccoon City, it forced Umbrella USA to close, which is why all the research switched to Umbrella Europe and was run by Sergei Vladimir in Russia. And then Umbrella Europe was eventually closed down in 2003 after Wesker testified. And that just left Umbrella Japan, I think it was. And they couldn't find any investors, so they went under in 2004, which was the last branch to close of the entire Umbrella.
Wesker actually testified then?
Wesker testified anonymously using evidence from Umbrella's data archive that he stole in Russia. And it was that evidence that provided irrefutable proof that Spencer and Umbrella were responsible for destroying Raccoon City. So that got the US government off the hook in that respect.
So basically, Wesker pulled an Edward Snowden. He was the whistleblower that tipped him off anonymously.
But people still harboured suspicions about the government, which is why you still had people like Curtis Miller, causing terrorist incidents to try and blackmail the president into releasing the truth of the government's
He was
role.
right. Miller was right.
Yeah, and then after that you had Adam Benford in Resident Evil 6.
He was just a pawn.
But he was going to reveal the truth, wasn't he? And Derek Simmons stopped him by causing the Tall Oaks outbreak.
The thing about Derek Simmons is that I don't think he was that bad a guy. Because he's a patriot. And he was putting America's interests first. He was all about taking care of America and saving American lives. And America needed men like him to keep the country safe from men like Adam Benford, who would have jeopardized America's position on the world stage.
Doesn't D.I.J. factor into this in some way?
The rat?
According to your bloody profile picture on here.
Well, of course, yes.
He's behind the whole thing.
I do apologise, though, because I know when we talk about the corporations, and I'm just sitting there going, the government's behind it all. The government...
These are clear links, aren't they? So.
Yeah,
this is the whole point. And the release of the T-virus onto the black market inevitably has kept the games going. And it kept Umbrella employed, didn't it, up until Dead Aim on what they were selling on the Spencer Reign. Presumably, with the Hunter B.O.W. is able developed in the Paris branch. It's never explicitly said, actually, is it?
Goes back to this rivalry thing between Umbrella Europe and Umbrella USA, because some of them were developed by the Americans, and the Hunter Beaters who were in Resident Evil 3, they were developed by Umbrella Europe. They just kept trying to outmaneuver each other. Having such a healthy rivalry to create the perfect weapon was only going to benefit the overall company, wasn't it? But once Umbrella USA closed, then Umbrella Europe ran everything from Russia. So everything after that would have been made in Russia.
This is why I like Degeneration, because wasn't like WilPharma working the government as well. There was some kind of shit going down with Ron Davis.
WilPharma, they had a secret agreement with the Pentagon. The Pentagon were funding WilPharma's T-virus vaccine research, but because they were conducting human trials in India, the US government covered that aspect up, but that was later exposed by TerraSave, who put it all over the internet.
Assholes.
Can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs.
That's true. That's very true. So I suppose on the public face, we have a large pharmaceutical corporation. They've developed a few products that we know. 3 from Resident Evil 3. Sasprin. Oh, this is a test. Aquacure. And another one.
Adravil,
very good. And there's also
the common cure.
There's also the one in Outbreak, isn't there? And the tablets, they're Umbrella products as well.
I just wanted to quickly say, just going back to why Umbrella, why it was based in the Oakley Forest. I remember at the time playing Remake, and I liked the idea that Umbrella wasn't this huge corporation. More felt like Spencer's. The mansion was Spencer's sort of shed at the back of the garden where he did all this sort of sinister experimenting that he wanted to keep hidden away from the world, and what better place than hidden away in this forest. And because I kind of always liked the idea that the games didn't really actually involve Umbrella, but involved the humans and how Umbrella affected the humans that came into contact with them. So, with Code Veronica, how that affects Claire's story, and again with the mansion, you don't really think about Umbrella Corporation in a sense and the politics behind that, and you don't get this Paul Anderson, Umbrella counter forces and all of this. You very much just get the individual human stories behind that, and I kind of prefer it when that takes the forefront rather than the actual corporation.
I think that's a really good point, and I think it's actually the spin-off games that have really showed the true horror and nature of the Umbrella Corporation. I mean, if you just play the normal games, nasty, you've got Resident Evil 0, they've been testing on the mother virus, all that rubbish, and you go, okay, that's pretty bad. But it's when you look at Survivor and, we're actively taking children or whatnot from
and shooting
Africa.
them.
Yeah.
Shooting them.
Yeah, it's still one of the best stories, I think, in the whole series, the narrative of Survivor. Amazing.
And then you've got Code Veronica as well, and you go, hold on, this is, okay, I understand, Raccoon City Lab, secret labs, great. I'm now on an island in the middle of Antarctica, and this is where Umbrella send their prisoners and political rivals and God knows what. It's like, why the hell do they need one of these? What's this? A military training facility? I mean you go, for fuck.
They send their political prisoners there. What are the NKVD or something? Send them to the gulags.
You get the hints, don't you, in RE2 with Hunk and stuff. They could have been anyone, but then Code Veronica really fleshes it out as to go, no, this is a major corporation that for some reason has its own army, and you've got the UBCS as well, and you're like, what the? And it's Survivor and Code Veronica that I think really show just what an evil bastard they are and what they're prepared to go to try and, as you say, Bats, get the ultimate B.O.W. And yeah, my thoughts on that.
I'd quite like to have learned more about like just the normal running of the company. Like you mentioned those products there, and in Resident Evil 3 you find posters for like various anti-aging creams, and one of the special items in Outbreak is Umbrella noodles.
Yes, that's true.
And
Umbrella are kind of like OCP, aren't they, in RoboCop? Like they cover everything.
I always wondered if Umbrella picked Raccoon City because it was a small town that they could basically slowly take on control. Because they employ so many people there. They have people in the central council and the central government, and it gets to the point where they have so much influence just in Raccoon City that no one will dare go against them. And once they've done that, they've slowly expanded that across various countries and governments until they're just, ridiculously powerful.
So what you're saying is that basically Raccoon City is Detroit and Umbrella is OCP, and they wanted to make their own Delta City. There's a lot of similarities there, I think, because OCP basically ran Detroit. They ran the police force, and look at Umbrella and the OPD. They had the fucking chief of police in their pocket. He was one of them.
Not to use George's famous term, but don't you think there's a slight missed opportunity? In Resident Evil 3, you didn't actually get to go into a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And have a look at Umbrella products. Oh, yeah, it is.
Well, it's not The Sims. If you were in charge of a Resident Evil game, it wouldn't be a survival horror. It'd be a first person, or just some bloke walk into a pharmacist. And he's like, let's see what I could do with some paracetamol. Oh, it's Umbrella. Like,
I think I'm coming down with some cold. No, I agree.
He holds it in front of you in your hand, and he rotated it around in your hands, the box. You go, oh yeah, they made this.
There could have been a puzzle in there, with some sort of key in it.
They did have that little sales office place in Resident Evil 3 with the puzzle with the TV and the batteries.
Oh my god, I had an amazing idea for a Resident Evil game. Oh my god. Okay, hear me out. This is random, but this is going to be fucking great. So basically, there should be a game where you play as an employee of Umbrella. You play as a scientist, and you go to work every day, and you do your shifts there, and you're working on stuff. You play as a virologist that's working for Umbrella, and you don't know what they're doing there. You think, oh, I've got this new job at Umbrella. It's a great opportunity. I've got a wife to look after at home, like, papers, please. Got to care for your wife and your family. And you've got this job working there. You've got to provide for your family. You've got to do your job. But the more you work there, as the game goes on and progresses with the story, you start to figure out that something isn't quite right about the company, and you start to have a crisis of conscience about whether you should continue to work for them or whether you should blow the whistle and risk losing a way to provide for your family.
And your character's name is Martin Crackhorn.
Yes!
It does sound like a better novel, perhaps, than a game.
I was going to say, I'm glad, A, you're not a game designer, and B, this is exactly why Steam is full of so much shovelware.
This would not be shovelware.
Am I right in thinking way back, and I'm talking like late 90s, when they first announced that they were going to be doing a prequel, wasn't that very similar to an early synopsis that was rumoured that you were actually going to be playing as someone in the lab in the run-up to events of May 11th?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I've tried to dig one of the old.
Rumor, I don't recall it.
It's going way back. My memory's maybe quite hazy on that. I'm surprised though. I mean, it's a depressing thing that the series has never depicted any of the labs sort of running, through a flashback or whatever. I think depressingly, only the movies have ever really done anything like that.
Yeah. I think my game idea is a fucking great one then, as a prequel. Because you work there, you do your thing, you can play as Martin Crackhorn or whatever his name was, and as the game goes on, and at the very end of the game, you get infected.
Ooh.
And you eventually become a zombie or you die at this place. It could take place at the Arkley Mansion before the whole shit broke down.
Can you imagine an average Umbrella employee's commute to work? Oh, crap. I've left the turntable key again to take...
I think
take the sky tram.
Like the opening scene of this game, it'd be like the opening to Half-Life. We're on the fucking tram going into work, and it's like, topside temperature is a pleasant 75 degrees.
No, it'd be like, I left the turntable game. Oh, I'll just have to use the magic elevator.
Oh, God.
But you do get a bit of that in the files, don't you? They complain about going through the sewers just to get to work. As you would. Raccoon City
No,
clearly
you gotta
hasn't been unionised yet.
This can be first person as well. Be first person, and it'll be in the sort of same vein as like PT or something. But it's got like an explorative element to it, where you start your shift at work, your first day, and you're looking forward to it. And the longer stuff goes on, you start to realise something isn't quite right about the company you're working for. Great idea. Someone should make it.
Pitch it to Capcom. I mean, don't.
I would pitch to Capcom and say, this is a brilliant idea. It'll be a great prequel. Like Ori Zero wasn't a fucking prequel. That was just, it takes place the day before, but it's basically the same kind of game as Resident Evil 1. No.
It was just extra story that didn't exist. It wasn't a prequel. It doesn't even link up properly to remake. So
no, it does.
They had the chance to fix it, and they didn't. So.
A key component, I suppose, of Umbrella has been Wesker and his defection from the Umbrella Corporation to said rival corporation,
which has come under so many bloody names.
Yeah.
Please, for the benefit of our viewers / listeners, can we clarify once and for all the third organisation and the rival corporation?
Well, I can't clarify it because I keep changing my mind. From my understanding, the third organisation is the rival company. In the Biohazard 4 guidebook, Wesker's got like a little timeline of his employment history, and it basically says Umbrella, Stars, and then in 1998 it shifts him to the third organisation. So in my eyes, the third organisation is definitely the rival company.
And the reason they're known as the third organisation is in reference to Resident Evil 4, where Torres Mendez is writing in the files about the possible involvement of a third party other than United States government and the Illuminados. He's always referencing a third organisation involved in the events. That's where it comes from.
So what does that make UHF? Is it UHF?
HCF.
HCF. Thank you, HCF. That was just like a squad of this company?
A military unit for that.
But do we know if that was intended to be the case, or if that was going to be the new company at one stage?
I don't think it was meant to be the new company. I think it was just the special force. It's like the rival company's equivalent of the UBCS or the USS.
Okay.
Because HCF is like Hive Capture Force.
Capture Force, that's right, yeah.
Which I think is just a reference to their mission to capture Alexia.
And S is one of these things. It's either the rival company or...
No, S is Tricell.
S is Tricell. Oh my gosh, this is why I asked for this. This is why I get so easily confused these days.
S becomes Seashell. And
That's right.
Seashell became Tricell.
They should actually update Resident Evil 4 now and be like, just change the file around and replace S with Tricell.
The depressing thing is they were sticking with Seashell all the way up to the Resident Evil 5 promo, because if you remember the Kijuju website even said like Seashell is the answer.
Yeah. That's the only real link we've got. But just for clarity, Wesker didn't defect from Umbrella to Tricell. He defected to the third organisation.
Ada's organisation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
what was that then?
The third organisation is the rival company to Umbrella. Umbrella's main rivals that were never given a proper name. They are also the organisation that Ada mentions in her report.
And also the agency that...
Yeah.
Annette mentions him too.
Yeah. It's a shame what happened to them, really, because it's an important plot point in the series, because they've played a big role behind the scenes in the sort of first half of the series. I mean, for example, the rival company were the ones who hired Ada Wong, and she infiltrated the mansion and got close to John Clemens. Her mission was to smuggle out a sample of the T-virus, which she ultimately failed to do because of the biohazard. But it was through her seduction of John that the rival company became aware of the existence of the G-virus. And then obviously Wesker was hired into the organisation after Resident Evil. He was paired up with Ada Wong, and they led the mission into Raccoon City to recover a sample of the G-virus, and Wesker also had an extra objective of saving William Birkin and recruiting him into the rival company so he could carry on his G-virus research with them. They also managed to acquire the data on the Nemesis T-type from Raccoon City. They had a spy on Rockfort Island who was there for at least 3 months, and that's how Wesker and the rival company became aware of the rumours that Alexia Ashford might still be alive, which leads to the whole events of Code Veronica. And then, of course, after Code Veronica, they are in possession of the T Veronica virus, the only organisation in the entire world to have it at that particular point. They created the Jabberwock S3, which was the first B.O.W. created using the Veronica virus as a base. Wesker also made alliances with people like Javier Hidalgo, and the files in that game hint that he's tried to persuade Javier to terminate his contract with Umbrella and sign a contract with the rival company instead. And then after the events of that game, obviously Jack Krauser joins the rival company. Then you've got the events of Prelude to the Fall, where it suggested a rival company as a spy in the Caucasus Mountains, looking for the existence of Umbrella's secret hangars where they're hiding all the B.O.Ws. And that leads to the events of Prelude to the Fall and eventually Umbrella's End. And it's sort of the unwritten rule that Wesker, when he steals the UMF 013, he keeps all the research data for himself and uses it solely for his own benefit rather than the rest of the rival company. And this is when the organisation begins to believe that he's getting a bit too powerful, and they start to view him as a cancer that could destroy them all if he's not kept in check. And this leads to the whole thing with Ada Wong in Resident Evil 4. But there's lots of really, really good stuff in there. Like, another thing the rival company did, for example, was they, using data given to them by Wesker after the Mansion incident, they sabotaged Umbrella's flagship B.O.W. program, which was the Hunter program, because they developed the more superior Hunter and Sweeper subspecies that, as explained in Darkside Chronicles, that eventually led to the Umbrella completely scrapping the Hunter project because it had been sabotaged. Basically, the rival company was creating and marketing a superior product, and this led to Umbrella trying to create a successor in the Anubis, which ultimately failed, obviously, because we never saw that particular creature again. And likewise, the sort of technology they have as well. You know, the Hunter surveillance drones in Code Veronica that Wesker uses to help the Hunters track Chris. That was a really cool sort of little concept in my eyes, and it reminded me of the stuff Krauser has in Resident Evil 4, them little sort of spider bot things and drones that he uses to attack Leon in the ruins. It really, really sort of struck me, even the first time I played it, that it was potentially the same technology. And also the private anti-biohazard force that Chris and Jill used to raid the Russian base in Umbrella's End. I don't know if you remember the intro where you can see Wesker's listening in to their conversation on the helicopters. Well, it's explained in one of the guidebooks that the rival company was one of several organisations to help fund that particular unit, and their money provided weapons and equipment and vehicles for them to carry out their missions in. And obviously the vehicles were bugged with surveillance devices so the rival company could listen into what was going on. And the whole point of that funding was to help these private biohazard teams deter Umbrella operations, but at the same time unwittingly help the rival company potentially acquire Umbrella's research data. So there's some really, really good stuff, but as usual with Resident Evil, a lot of it is lost behind the scenes and never ever explained in the games.
This is ridiculous.
Well, it's even more ridiculous because Tricell itself, like quite an old company as well, which means that it's not obviously just the main competitor to Umbrella, it's like one of the main competitors, because obviously Tricell's reasonably big as well, which is again why I always get confused with all this.
Mm-hmm. And Tricell were a legitimate company, but then they decided to go into bioterrorism themselves as a source of funding. And that was kind of given to Excella, who then aligned herself with Wesker and whatnot. Wesker thought, yeah, I could use you.
Yeah.
So he's defective twice, Wesker.
But of course, obviously, the people at Tricell, well, Excella didn't know he had his own intent / the rival company intent, which is really his own intent, actually.
Yes, and there's always been some confusion about, was he successful in defecting to the third organisation? Isn't there narrative to suggest that actually he had to go and prove himself because he didn't get all the combat data?
As I say, that's the thing that also doesn't make sense to me. Like, someone who didn't have all the data but has enough would probably still be useful. Plus, considering what he goes on to do in regards to Resident Evil 5, it's like the rival company didn't really mean anything to him anyway. Like, it was like the means to an end for, I don't know, funding or something. Information, other viruses.
Well, this is the frustrating thing about them, really, because they play quite a big role behind the scenes up until the end of Resident Evil 4, and then they're just sort of quietly forgotten about. And all you get is a brief reference in one of the files in 5 that Wesker sort of drained all their resources looking for Spencer. It's just so vague, because this company is supposed to be Umbrella's main rivals, but when Umbrella started getting in the shit after Raccoon City, it says in the archives book that WilPharma became the world's leading pharmaceutical company. I've always thought the rival company is maybe a bit more of like a network of dummy companies. I always compare them to Cerberus in Mass Effect, a difficult to trace sort of shadow organisation made up of numerous different front companies.
Do you think that maybe is what all those pharmaceutical companies that were perhaps originally intended for Umbrella Corps could have ended up being? Like, it turned out that they were all part of this rival company, and that's where the unified...
Potentially, because after the events of Code Veronica, everybody knows Wesker's obviously still alive, but nobody can find him, even though they know he's working for this mysterious organisation. And if this organisation was a legitimate pharmaceutical company like Umbrella was, then surely they'd have ways of tracing him. But if there's some sort
being a shadowy, multifaceted...
For then, who is it Ada sends the genuine Plaga to?
Well, this is what I keep changing my mind. She sends the subordinate Plaga to Wesker on the orders of the rival company, because the rival company are getting concerned that Wesker is growing too much influence, and he's going to end up destroying the organisation from the inside out. What's not explained is why Ada goes to them in the first place. Ada goes to them because it's part of her super secret objective that she's had throughout the series that's never been revealed. And the rival company decide to employ her as a foil for Wesker to keep him in check. So Ada's working with Wesker, but at the time is still reporting back to the hierarchy of this rival company about all his movements, and that's how they learn how he's secretly contacting Tricell and stuff. And on the other side, that also explains how Wesker doesn't fully trust Ada and is expecting her to betray him, which she ultimately does.
Well, I was just going to say, the only other thing that would make any sense to me that they could, not retcon, because it hasn't been properly explained, but to explain it, is that the rival company was, say, a dummy corporation run by the family or something like that, which essentially would tie the whole Ada thing in quite nicely, I think, in regards to what the events of 6.
So, the Ada storyline, just after 6, I couldn't. Ada doesn't work for the third organisation.
It's said in archives that she works for someone else, but it's never ever elaborated who that is. I don't think it really matters. It just
I think the idea is that she's double agenting again, that she's essentially leading this rival company down. But again, that's why I think it still would potentially work with the whole cloning thing.
I don't think it's really that significant who she sent the real Plaga to. It's just want to emphasise the point that Wesker doesn't get it off her.
Yes.
Once you start adding like WilPharma and then the expansion of Tricell and this kind of unexplainable third organisation, rival company crap. This is why I originally talked about this as an idea. It's just, and especially now with the upcoming thing with Umbrella, this Umbrella thing in 7, it's just like they've got dangling plot threads with no explanation that probably should have never existed in the first place, because nobody was really looking at how this whole thing was flowing. And this is why we've just had sequel after sequel of disposable enemy. Main villain is disposable.
And it's a shame, because Tricell were looking like being a potential rival. We see them at their nice cameo at the end of Degeneration. They're in Revelations 1 if you really, really look for them. And it just hasn't been followed through. And as Mr. Spencer said a few times, is that they could easily ignore what happened in RE5 for just being, a lone wolf doing whatever. She got infatuated by Wesker, this isn't us, but secretly they could carry on with it. So the opportunity is still there. But we now know they went under as well, thanks to a little line somewhere.
There's another loose end as well, and I'm curious to know where this character ends up working, what corporation or where they end up. Nikolai, he's still out there, as far as I'm aware, and we don't know where the fuck he has gone. He can't be working for Umbrella still, because they went under. I'm really curious to know, any ideas, any hypothetical ideas you guys might have about where he could end up, where he could be working, potentially.
Could be literally anywhere, because he was just a mercenary motivated by money, so he'd probably work for whoever paid him the most. I don't think he has any particular loyalty to anyone.
But he's got a good experience for a specific skill set, obviously, so he'd be highly sought after as a survivor of the raccoon incident.
Just going back to your point, Rob, I think the rival company plotline has been a casualty of the scrapped versions of Resident Evil 4. I'm pretty sure in one of those versions that rival company would have been elaborated on further, but when it switched to the version of Resident Evil 4 we ultimately got, it was sort of pushed to the background, and it's never really been expanded on then, because they decided to introduce Tricell and have Wesker work with them.
This is the thing I've always assumed. I don't think there's been any evidence of it, but I always figured that the setup for 5 in regards to, and what became the Lost in Nightmares segment, much like it uses assets and ideas from the cancelled versions of 4, I assumed that the plot line of Wesker turning up trying to find Spencer was still intended for that original version of the game, and at that stage maybe he was working for this other organisation, because that would make sense given the time frame and what Capcom itself was looking at the time. But it's never been confirmed that was ever part of the plot, but it would make sense to me that maybe, much like Leon has tracked him down at the same time Wesker was going to turn up. Because it obviously set that up after Code Veronica.
I'm just told, why can't, I know it can't happen because it's specifically mentioned that it can't, but would the storyline still work if you just substituted the organisation for Tricell?
No, only because the files state Wesker didn't contact Excella till 2003, when he's been working for the rival company since 1998.
But ignore it.
And Wesker officially doesn't go over to Tricell full time until after Lost in Nightmares, when everyone assumes he's died again. But I think you're right. I think that's the biggest mistake. That's how they could have got around it. They could have just made the rival company Tricell.
And just had done with it, yeah.
And make it that when he was working for them, it was like a shadowy connection until he officially introduced himself in 2003 or something like that, and that would have worked fine. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he introduced himself in 2003. Hello, Tricell. I've acquired the UMF-13 backup Red Queen data. Here we go. Oh, excellent.
That was
I've
his
been the one that's
that was his
been
bio.
providing. Yeah, I've been the one that's been providing you other samples and resources until now. But now that I've got this, I want more power. I want more say in this.
And I'm looking for Mr. Spencer. Exactly.
But he was just using Tricell to further his own agenda, just like he
This
used
is weird.
Umbrella.
But that's weird. Also, doesn't quite things don't always match up as well. I'm trying to think of the way to say it, but they tried to essentially not retcon, because retcon's wrong, but they basically tried to reword the focus. Like obviously by saying there's all this background regarding Spencer that probably wouldn't have otherwise existed. Which is why I'm curious to know if that was what the original intent of tracking him down would have been, if it had been part of the early GameCube versions of 4 with Leon.
Wow. So, as I said, Tricell have now been disbanded. Well, it was mentioned in a file.
It was mentioned in the intro of Revelations 2. It's not really expanded on, but I think the assumption was that they were implicated in the creation of the Ouroboros virus, because the President and Congress were having a big debate about the possible dangers of the Ouroboros virus, and I think that because Wesker was dead and Excella was dead, they were just blaming Tricell as a whole company for its creation. So there's that, and you get the little tidbit in Umbrella Corps where it says their main headquarters was attacked by one of Tricell's rival companies, which isn't the rival company.
This is ridiculous.
Wait, are you sure that it's not the rival company, or is it just that?
No.
I assume it's one of these various organisations that was supposed to appear in Umbrella Corps and don't really.
It did happen to that rival company that Wesker worked for.
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. There's just a vague line in a file that Wesker drained them of resources looking for Spencer.
So we've got Umbrella collapsed in 2003-2004. WilPharma was bought out by Tricell after the events in Degeneration, and then Tricell collapsed by 2010, 2011 or something like that. We've got this rival company, which we don't know who it is, and we know that their funds were dried up, but we don't know if the company actually disappeared or if it was replaced or bought out or whatever it is. And then we've got all these new organizations, which may include the Chinese one plus whatever Umbrella Corps is actually.
There's lots, isn't there, in that game on the badges?
I had a theory that the organisation in Umbrella Corps was the rival company, because they knew a hell of a lot about Umbrella. They knew about people like Alexia. They were using Umbrella's tech, and they had access to, they were able to build like a detailed replica of the police station in Raccoon City, and they had that classified Umbrella lab that we keep arguing about. It gets around the whole Wesker clone thing, because you have the text saying, the leader of the organisation knows all about the village as if he was there, and I just thought, well, if it's the rival company, it makes sense that it's going to be an associate of Wesker who knew about the Plaga operation in 2004, but apparently that's just ridiculous and unrealistic, and it's far more better to just have a Wesker clone.
See, the thing is, it's what I said before. I'm convinced by the connection to 7 with what I saw in Umbrella Corps, as much as everyone was detesting the game. Like, I'm not going to shirk the canon, and it would make a lot of sense if, say, the rival company bought up the remains and assets of Umbrella and essentially completed their information gathering by doing so, and then basically all but turned themselves into a new version of Umbrella, whether or not it's in names or, as we might assume, we were saying, like a consortium of fake companies. That would work. I honestly think it would.
They could fix it theoretically, because you could have Shen-Ya in Resident Evil 7 and Capcom could say, this was the rival company. They own the Umbrella Corps, which means it was Shen-Ya who was the organisation in Umbrella Corps running the experiment, which means they knew about the village in 2004, which means Shen-Ya was the S corporation mentioned in Ada's report.
No.
Oh
Well,
god.
no, you don't need that because we know S become, or is that
I know
just
we know S becomes Tricell, but theoretically you could have that, and it gets rid of that little discrepancy.
You know what this reminds me of? You know that you heard that Red Letter Media, right? When they did that video about the timeline of Terminator Genesis, the Terminator timeline, the white thing. And they're like, oh, you know, this use a green pen. This is exactly that. We've got a fucking.
This is the problem. I know. This is why I asked about this because, like, to me, I keep getting confused. I'm not as up on the corporation and members of various organizations as you guys are, and so I just get easily confused by all this. I just find the whole thing really trite, and I try my best. Like before I came for this episode to actually look into it, and this list that I've been provided as well has been helping with stuff that I didn't know about. It's such a mess when it didn't need to be a mess. That's the worst part of it.
Could Shen-Ya be the rival corporation from that Wesker used to work for? Could that work?
There's no reason it can't be. It just needs a little bit of clever writing in 7. But I don't see why not, because if Shen-Ya own the Umbrella Corps unit, which Heavenly Island implies, that means they're the organisation in the Umbrella Corps game, and that organisation has so much inside knowledge about Umbrella and the events of Resident Evil 4, then
that would make sense.
It would make sense.
Yeah, they could then say that Shen-Ya were S if they wanted to, or they could say that Shen-Ya were the third organisation, whatever you want to call them, that hired Wesker and Ada.
But the problem is, we've talked before about there being too many cooks, with all these different writers. It's like someone had to write a basic 5-minute scenario for Umbrella Corps, and I thought, well, hang on, this maybe potentially isn't going to be tying into the main story too much, so let's just have another ambiguous organisation and just refer to them as the company or the organisation, and that way we get ourselves out of a hole. But at the same time, it just adds to this massive confusion. I mean, why have they even introduced Shen-Ya Pharmaceuticals? Because they suddenly thought, shit, we haven't got a pharmaceutical company because the previous writer in Revelations 2 was killed off Tricell, so we're going to have to bring someone else in. It makes me question just how much of it is pre-planned and
I'm guessing that those files from 7 with the references to Revelations and Outbreak are making me hopeful that someone's actually sat down when making this game. I mean, obviously we know it's got a Western writer, which may be good or bad really for the connective thing anyway, but hopefully some people have things who want to make sure we tie up and connect and actually try and work this out as part of the story behind this. I'm really hopeful for that, just because of those things. But then again, it may turn out to be absolutely nothing, and it's nothing but...
Well, all I would say is that they've had, since 1998 to name the rival organisation. It wouldn't have harmed them in any way whatsoever during Archives 1, 2, or anything, any supplementary material, just to name HCF's employers, and they haven't been bothered. It doesn't matter, it could be, the Joe Blogg's organisation. It wouldn't have made any difference, but they haven't been bothered to do so, which doesn't give me any hope that some Western director of Resident Evil 7 is going to go, do you remember that point in Resident Evil 4? No.
The only thing you can say about that is no one expected 5 to do the same with things like 0.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, that's the funny thing to me as well, is that there's that lament a lot of the time that obviously a lot of the Japanese guidebooks and Japanese books and stuff have a lot of information that we would miss out in the Western audiences. That's the connective tissue. But it's funny that even they haven't had something come up at some point since in the last 16 or 18 years.
Yeah. Well, it's the impression is that they're trying to leave it blank for some story in the future to be filled in. Perhaps as a story person going, don't touch that, someone can use that for a future game. But as you say, it's been 16 years and they have not touched it with a barge pole. I think what the general consensus is, the intention was for it to be Tricell, but they dug themselves too much of a hole and had to quickly get themselves out of it. Why even say the large organisation only known as S and then not actually keep the name S? Why change it? Why then say, it's seashell?
Well, they did. To me, they didn't need to change it. It was a placeholder, but it would have been nice if they treated it as such and just went like S or Seashell was like the code name for Tricell's bioweapons division.
Yes,
and in that case, that would have made a lot more sense. But it's not thought of those in those respects,
Paul, are you following?
To be honest with you lost me at S. And I did perk up when Rombie said that he found it all, not the debate obviously, but Capcom's use of all these corporations, that he just found it trite and confusing. Because I feel like I'm not doing my part on this podcast. Moved on from my RE7 rant. Yeah, for my part, I have found it very confusing. That Batman's right. It's not the only thing that suffered from having, differing teams working on games either in parallel or one after the other. And it's a shame. I sometimes think that these games work best when they're on simpler terms. And I got as interested in the politics of the corporations when you had the rival motives and agendas of the original founders, Ashford and Spencer and Marcus. But then when you actually got, I don't know if it's a Japanese influence, but then when you get into these larger corporations vying for power, I start to turn off a little bit and do find it confusing.
Spencer Marcus Ashford is one of the best subplots in the series, I think, that sort of internal power struggle. All that was about getting total control over Umbrella, wasn't it?
Yeah, and having different directions as to how they wanted it to take the T-Virus project.
But that dealt with the human impact and Marcus's downfall from that obsession and Spencer and what happened to Ashford, and then with Ashford's downfall, the ripples out through the generations of his children. So that I find particularly interesting.
A slight elephant in the room when it comes to organisation is probably the least memorable organisation. Where does Neo Umbrella come into all this?
Oh,
God. There was Neo Umbrella, and then there was very way back in the original Resident Evil, wasn't it White Umbrella as well? Which were
yes. Yeah.
I think White Umbrella was just a mistake. I don't think that was in the Japanese versions. I think it was just another mistranslation.
Neo Tricell, it's going to happen.
Neo Umbrella was just a terrorist organisation, wasn't it? It was never really a proper company.
No, but they had a building.
Well, I think that was just because Carla was siphoning all the family's resources, because Simmons just blindly trusted her, didn't he? And she was just fucking him over, using his resources to build this organisation to ultimately take him down. Which is what Alex Wesker did when she went to the island in Revelations 2, because she still had Spencer's trust. She used Umbrella's finances to sort of rebuild the mine and get the island operations running again, until she eventually decided she didn't need him anymore.
I do like Revelations 2. I need to play it again. It's a good game. Right, wow. Okay, so that's got into it well. Carry on, Rombie.
I was just going to say, so where does this leave us for where we're going? 7, that's the big question. Like, where do we think this is going?
The Kingsmill Corporation with the bakery.
Yes, there's a bakery.
Warburtons.
Warburtons are behind it all.
I think there will be some sort of corporate background thing going on in 7. I think a few people have already said, playing the first 4 hours of the game, they've started to formulate theories based on what's happened in the earlier timeline of the series with corporate espionage and things. So
as much as RE7 is scaled back, it's going to be linked.
Yeah,
it'd be silly not to have it linked in some way or the other. And I feel it's going to be a bit like Resident Evil 1 in that sense. I know that's what obviously it's aiming for, is that although Wesker was the kind of baddie, there was a bigger baddie that you just couldn't see through your investigation, and I think we're probably going to be going down the same. It could be Shen-Ya. Why not?
You know what I'm expecting when I start on Resident Evil 7? I want to hear the big title theme. It goes Resident Evil 7, and then a little voiceover at the end going, sponsored by Warburtons.
You're super keen on this bread idea.
I think it's good. I think I'm onto something there. Fucking bakery, it's bread monsters.
I think they've even confirmed, though, sadly, it doesn't say the name on the title screen.
No.
But obviously some corporation has created these moulded things and whatever this new virus is, so...
Red mould.
I do think the Japanese name.
Say black mold is deadly.
Whew, right, yeah. So I suppose if it is Shen-Ya, that would be quite interesting, and that would certainly silence any Umbrella Corp doubters.
That's what it points to, anyway. But we'll see.
Is there any other I suppose there's also other organised. We had TerraSave. They've been involved as a NGO headed up by someone, and involving Claire, and they've been involved in a couple of media outlets. They're starring, well, I suppose, being in Degeneration and then in Revelations 2. Do we still think they're going to be floating around? Or they have their time?
Yeah, I think so. That's the reason Claire's in Heavenly Island as well, because TerraSave are investigating reports of infected fish around the island the comic takes place on. So Claire and another TerraSave agent are there investigating. So I think they'll always be around. They're quite a nice little addition.
They're quite an active NGO, though, aren't they? I mean, that's quite dangerous to be doing. If you'd heard of stories of infected fish, you'd send in the BSAA, I would have thought.
And one nice tidbit from Heavenly Island as well is everybody knows about Alex Wesker now, because it says the BSAA and TerraSave conducted an investigation on the island after the events of the game and confirmed the overseer's identity as Alex Wesker. So the BSAA know all about the Wesker children thing now as well, which I thought was a nice little addition.
I have to be honest, this is sounding more and more essential, this Heavenly Island. It's annoying me. Is it?
Don't get me wrong, it's not Shakespeare or anything like that. It's nowhere near as good as any of the games, but obviously it does have enough useful links because it pulls together so many different games.
It's not in English yet, though, is it?
Not yet. No,
not officially.
But
then Mahara Design never got in English either, did it?
Yeah, it did, eventually.
Oh, there we go.
I would just say out of all the corporations, I think WilPharma is the most unique one, because I think that's the only corporation that wasn't sort of evil from the inside out. I think they had genuinely quite good intentions with the T-virus vaccine, and it was just Frederick Downing who corrupted them. I think
it takes his one bad egg.
I think as a corporation they were quite innocent, which is quite ironic really when they eventually got bought out by Tricell.
Well, I suppose is this why we don't actually see the T-virus leak around, because of their success with the T vaccine. Any other virus going forward has to be a variant of.
Again, what we were talking about before, like it was thought of in the short term, and this would be really good for this as a plot point and a resolve, but they're not really looking at the overall picture going. Just axed one of the main important ingredients of what makes this franchise kind of move forward, so now we have to instead create a bunch of other viruses.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind if they just used it again. I mean, look at the T-Abyss virus. I mean, that is deadly on a cataclysmic level, what it can do to life forms. Would it be great if that came back in some way? Or the T-Phobos virus was an interesting concept, but they just become concepts for random games. If it became a bigger threat throughout the series,
or even a combination thereof, a game where various viruses are around would be very interesting as well, because that would require you to change sort of tactics and gameplay and stuff as well a little bit.
I suppose they could do it with the C virus, but I don't know what they're thinking with the C. They must have been drunk that day with the C virus. Well, I say that because they just don't have a clue. There's no logic in what the C virus can do, and that's why I hate 6 with so much. Even with the G virus, there's a bit of logic. Bigger, explode, that type of thing.
I think the Joavo concept of the C virus is quite good. The whole growing an organism in a chrysalid.
Yes.
And the fact that these complete mutation species have insect traits is because of the application of the T. veronica in the C virus, and why they also have combustible blood. So I think it works in that sense. For me, the nonsensical part of the C virus is the gas that creates zombies. That's just too B-movie cliched shit.
But I've said it with RE4 many times with the Plagas. That didn't make any sense.
What if the virus in RE7 isn't a virus, but it spreads via spores, like Last of Us or something?
Well, I don't know, because you have to get attacked to get infected. But I figured there was some sort of, there's a direct contact. Maybe not spores, but it's definitely contact anyway.
It's like a fungus that's slowly overtaking the house. It's really evident if you play the Lantern demo. You can see it all over the ceilings and stuff.
It's bread mold. It's growing. It's changed. It's cross species now.
But it's interesting. It seems that you've got that chap's hand gets chopped off and he's not again, and all that, or he rips off his skin, doesn't he, or something like that. So it's got amazing regenerative powers.
But obviously only some people.
But
well, that could be another potential tie-in back to Umbrella, because whatever the Bakers are infected with seems to be very close to what Spencer originally wanted. I mean, they might not be immortal, but they've clearly got hugely impressive regeneration abilities, and they're still realistically human. So, who knows?
Well, as human as rednecks can get.
On that note, does anyone have any other comments or discussion points over organisations that we've encountered in the series?
No.
Just don't introduce any more.
And don't introduce ones that you just completely drop at a whim.
Yeah.
Think before you drop.
And we need consistency as well. Streamline it so it's not all this crap everywhere.
Okay. Well, thank you. We don't have any call-ins this week, so we'll move on to the rather festive edition of Neptune's Biohazard Quiz.
New season.
You questions. You answers. And probably you fuckers. Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. Batman. Star Tyrant. George Trevor. Rombie McGregor. Mr. Spencer. Neptune's Biohazard Quiz.
We are now doing Neptune's Biohazard Quiz, a festive edition. All the Biohazard questions this week, folks, are Christmas themed. Loosely, I will caveat, but they are Christmas themed. So if everyone can clear their desktops, you can open up Notepad. Let's start. So, question number 1. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer has a very shiny nose. But in how many canon games does the red jewel/gemstone appear?
That's such a tenuous link.
Not including director's cut/re-releases, so I'm kind of like...
Wait,
Right.
sorry, because the singing kind of...
But are you classing the remake or the original as separate entities?
Good question. They are just one entity.
Do you mean any red jewel? So the red jewel could be different shapes?
Yes.
What? But Resident Evil 2 was a fucking... No.
That's one at least.
It's just an unexpectedly deep question.
I thought it was going to be something light-hearted with the song. I thought, oh, it's all right.
The way it started, yeah.
And then he just raped us.
Question number 2. This is easy. It's Christmas Eve.
Well, don't tell me that was meant to be that.
The Fairy Tale of New York is a classic Christmas tune, but in which Biohazard title is set in this city?
Hello to our Irish listeners.
It's a good policeman song, that as well, isn't it? I think. In New York, a game.
I don't think I said the word game.
Which Biohazard title?
Okay. Question number 3. Every Christmas Day, the UK's head of state, the Queen, tries to tell the nation that Prince Harry is her legitimate grandson. But what was the name of the head of state of the Eastern Slav Republic? It's quite a simple question, I think most people should know. Question number 4. It's the most wonderful time of the year. But what report is prepared between Christmas Day and Boxing Day? So it's a file. What file is prepared? What file/report is prepared between Christmas Day and Boxing Day?
A lot of suspicious typing going on in the back.
That's Notepad.
And finally, question 5. If Biohazard did Christmas, I'd imagine we would see the Nemesis on a sleigh delivering viruses to children all around the world.
Is he in Syria right now, then?
That sleigh would be pulled by the 12 canon variants of Hunter. Name them.
Oh, jeez. What the fuck was that? That's quite a good question, though, but heavy.
12 canon variants of Hunter.
Oh god. Oh man, I'm not gonna get that one.
Yeah.
That concludes Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. Join us after this, where we'll run through those all-important answers.
What happened?
What's going on?
Wow!
So, question number 1 was my wonderful rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But how many canon games does the Red Jewel / Gemstone appear? Okay, we'll start with Batman.
I'm gonna guess 4. I think it's remake or the original. Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, and Outbreak.
Okay. Stars Tyrant.
I had exactly the same.
Did you? Mr. Spencer?
I went with 4 as well, the ones I could remember.
Rombie?
I honestly am struggling to think of more than one, which is really silly. And then I'm thinking, are we also counting the ones that weren't the same? There was various red gems. There was like, I'm pretty sure there's a red gem style, but I'm not sure it's a red gem in 4.
Yeah, that counts as one.
Oh god, that counts. Alright. 4, I guess. 4.
Okay, and finally George Trevor?
Yeah, I went with 4, but I was sort of all over the place because I wasn't sure if any of the jewels in Resident Evil 4, and I was also thinking of the clock puzzle in Resident Evil 3 when you open that sort of clock to.
That's only Obsidian, Amber, and Crystal, though, isn't it?
But no, 4 Resident Evil remake, the one in 2.
There's
I'm
5
counting
got red
1
gems as
and 3.
well, aren't it?
Yeah.
6 was the answer. Yeah. No, you're Resident Evil 2, Outbreak, Code Veronica, Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 5.
Fuck's sake.
So well done. No points there for anyone. Question number 2. Which Biohazard title is set in the city of New York?
I got this.
Okay, we'll start with
The
George.
only connection I had with New York was that's where George Trevor's office was. I was trying to think of some of the comics.
Oh, okay, right. This wasn't a non-canon corner round.
No, I can't think. No, I don't know.
Oh, I just realised what it is.
New York. I'm trying to think of like an outbreak in a
York.
delicatessen or like loads of Hasidic Jews running around.
I don't.
No idea.
Mr. Spencer, you see him smile.
Well, my initial answer was Resident Evil 9/11, but then when you mentioned non-canon corner, it's got to be confidential report. Has to be.
Well, I said it wasn't non-canon.
But in your mind, that game's canon, so therefore.
Okay, Batman.
Vendetta.
Oh shit.
Rombie.
The Vendetta.
And Star Tyrant.
Oh shit.
Very good. And you don't pay me for paying attention. That was actually given in the podcast. It actually said Vendetta in New York, so the answer was there earlier on this evening. So there we go. So question number 3 was, what is the name of the head of the state of the Eastern Slav Republic? We'll start with Rombie this time.
Oh, I have no idea. I had no memory of this. I know it's from the second anime film, but
I know. George?
No. Slatvata something.
Slatvata.
Is this one of your fucking Russian mail order brides you're talking about here, Paul?
No, my first answer, whatever that was, I can't pronounce it anymore.
Mr. Spencer?
I've actually been reading Stalingrad by Anthony Beevor lately, so my answer is Field Marshal Edith von Manstein.
Stars turn.
I can't pronounce the name. It's Svetlana something, but I can't remember it.
Svetlana Belikova.
I was onto something.
Svetlana Belikova.
Batman?
Yeah, Svetlana Belikova.
Where did that come from, Mr. Spencer?
When you mentioned Svetlana, I knew it.
Wait, do I get half a point for getting the first name?
We've been here before, haven't we, this question?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but it's not in a Christmas theme. Point for Batman.
That's my point then, because I got mine right.
I'm suspicious of that suddenly coming up.
What, do I not get a half for getting the first name completely correct out of the blue?
Wasn't correct. He said Slutvana. What the fuck's that?
It's my Cockney pronunciation.
Well, I'll say if you don't score any points, I might give a sympathy half. So we'll see. Question number 4. What was the report paired between Christmas Day and Boxing Day? Batman.
What, you mean like a file dated on Christmas Day? Is that...
Yes. I mean, I'll be honest, you wrote this.
I wrote it.
It's from the Biohazard timeline.
Fuck.
Your exact words were 25th to the 26th of December, circa.
Oh, so it's not official then.
Well,
Oh, fuck. I've no idea. I can't think. The only thing I can think of that was recorded on Christmas Day was Alexander's video message in Darkside Chronicles.
No idea.
Rombie?
I want to say it's like a butler's letter or something from Code Veronica, but or something like an assistant, like greetings to the family or something silly, but I have no idea.
Mr. Spencer?
Queen's speech.
George
I've no idea. I think Batman's onto something because I had a feeling it had something to do with Code Veronica because You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
because
got-
Claire, because I saw the other day on the Resident Evil Twitter feed, it was December the 17th, and that's the date when Claire infiltrates the, you know, the Paris facility. So I don't know, but if to cement my half a point, I think Batman's onto something. It's got to do with Code Veronica.
Okay. It's the inspection report from Gun Survivor 2, prepared by.
That was close then.
I don't think that was officially dated, though. I think I just guessed.
So if you've got issues, take up with Batman. That's all I say. So, no points there. Finally, question number 5. Now, this will be... Alright, I'm going to have to be careful here. Can you name the 12 canon variants of the Hunter? Because it's likely that Batman's going to know most of them, I'm going to let Batman go first to help the others. That's the type of guy I am.
Right, so you've got the Hunter Alpha, the Hunter Beta, the Hunter 2, and the Sweeper. You have the Outbreak Hunters.
Is that plural, are you saying though?
Well, you've got there's 2 variants, isn't it? There's the Outbreak Hunter, which is the MA125, and then there's the smaller variant, the sort of version of the same Hunter.
Yeah, very good. The Mew, if you want, I'll give you that.
Then you've got the Hunter Elite, the Hunter Delta, and I'm struggling now.
Is it 12?
How many
one. Hold on.
How many have I given you?
I think you gave me 8. Maybe 9 with. You said Delta at the end. You said Delta at the end.
The Frogger variant from Resident Evil 3. I can't remember the code number, but the one that looks like a frog that can swallow a whole. And the MA120 prototype that we never see.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm out. I can't think of any more. Have I said Hunter Elite?
That's 11.
Oh, and the Farafello.
Oh, that's 12.
That's a pasta, though, isn't it? It's a type of pasta.
Did you say tick from because the tick?
It's not canon.
Is that?
It's not.
That's on my That's on my list.
What did you have, Stas?
I did not have half of them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice and honest. I appreciate the honesty.
Alpha, Gamma, Beta. Tech count from the Saturn.
No.
There's a Sweeper. I remember Sweeper.
Yeah.
No. Oh, the Hunter 2.
Yeah.
And the Glimmer.
Yeah.
Got the Glimmer. That's as far as I can get.
Mr. Spencer, what did you?
I just put no as my answer because I'm not fucking doing 12 of them. Get the fuck out of here. Not time for that.
George, what did you?
I think I had 6 because I started with the ones that just kind of weren't hunters but were in the names. So I had Farafello, the Tick, and the Glimmer. Hunter Alpha and Beta. I had Hunter Elite because I knew that from Dead Aim, and then I just the multicoloured poisonous ones from Code Veronica, but I couldn't remember their name. What were they?
Sweeper.
Oh, the Sweeper. Yeah. So that's 6, I think I had.
So the answer is the MA120, which is from Resident Evil 2 N64 version. The 121 Alpha, the 121 Beta, the 124 Gamma, which is the frog.
Nick, just stop a sec. Go through each one and tell me what game they're in. Go for it.
Okay. The 120, the MA120 is the prototype hunter from Resident Evil 2 X-Files.
Right, I know. Yep, that's it.
The 121 Alpha is from Resident Evil at 0 and normal. The 121 Beta is from Resident Evil 3.
Right.
The 124 Gamma is from Outbreak File 2 and from Resident Evil 3.
The frog one.
The frog one, yeah. The Hunter 2 is from Code Veronica. The Sweeper is from Code Veronica. The Hunter Delta is from the Umbrella Chronicles manga and from Umbrella Chronicles itself. The 125R is from Outbreak 1 and 2. The Hunter Mew is from Outbreak File 2. The Glimmer is from Dead Aim. The Elite is from Dead Aim. And Farfellow is from Revelations.
Yeah, I forgot to say the Glimmer.
Did you? How did you get to it? I must have counted Delta twice for you, but you still got...
Was the Glimmer engineered, or was it one of the things that was sort of roaming around that was like a mistake?
Yeah, it was. I think it was just a discarded subject, didn't it? And it evolved.
Is it? Cause
it's like the Sweeper is classified as a subspecies in the same way that the Sweeper was.
Okay, because the Hunter Elite was at the time that was kind of meant to be the pinnacle, wasn't it? And then I wasn't sure if the Glimmers were sort of like either the sort of the failed versions of the Elites.
I'd say the Farfellow eclipsed it through its invisibility.
Oh yeah, but that was just ridiculous, the invisibility thing.
Not really. Chameleons can change their skin colour things. Why not?
Anyway, let's have a look at the final scores. Well, it's a poor day for this Christmas. No one's really in the festive cheer. Batman finishes with 3 stars, the solitary one. Mr. Spencer and GT didn't score at all. Rob, you score 1. Poor show, gentlemen. Poor show. But there we go. Well, I hope you all enjoyed our Christmas edition of Neptune's Biohazard quiz. Join us next time when we'll have more questions. So, there we go. That concludes the quiz. Thank you very much for listening. We will be probably touching base in the new year all this time next month, and we'll be gearing up for the release of Resident Evil 7. We'll be back with a new podcast when everyone's presumably had a good chance to play it, and I'm sure you're all eager to hear what we think.
That's good for PC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's all I care about. Maybe a good fucking.
Are you going to invest, Mr. Spencer?
What do you mean invest? In buying it?
Are you going to buy? So it's a complex vocabulary though. Are you going to buy it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
My
I'll
God.
go see it's on Steam. Yeah.
So we'll actually have a podcast where you've actually played the game.
So we will all inevitably catch up and discuss Resident Evil 7. Everyone here at Project Umbrella wishes you a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year, and try not to drink too much. And we will see you very soon. All very excited about Resident Evil 7. So it's goodbye from me, Neptune.
Goodbye from me, Batman.
Goodbye from me, Stars Tyrant.
It's goodbye from me, Rombie.
And goodbye from me, George Trevor.
And it's goodbye from me, Mr. Spencer.
I ate some yeast today to get some vitamin B. The scrapings from the jar instead of eating meat. I spread it on the bread. The cravings disappear. They used to throw it all away. The waste from making beer. What have you become? My microscopic friend, the staple of the world, a model for myself. If you've an itchy ass or even vagina, it's not saccharomyces. I think it's candida.
If you're not singing along yet, you're not feeling the spirit.
On the 11th day of Christmas, Capcom gave to me 11 fights with Redfield, 10 Lisa Travers, 9 Crimson Heads, 8 Leckers Legging, 7 playtime minutes, a game I wasn't in, global saturation, 4 creepy badger, 3 understanding, 2 Neptune's gnawing, and a broken counter bastard named Jake. On the 12th day of Christmas, Capcom gave to me
My death. Merry Christmas! Mas.